Ah.
The internet connection speed. Let me try again.
Yeah, just keep trying.
I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna restart my router.
All right, sounds good.
I can go for something super crazy that might work. It might
Plug
not.
your PS4 directly into your router.
Something like that, yeah.
All right.
But it would involve a big move of some stuff, so I'll figure it out. Could not connect to your PS4.
The internet connection speed is currently not sufficient to join SharePlay. Suggested actions.
Alright, I'm gonna go try something a little crazy. And
All right, sounds good.
I'll get back to you in probably like 10 minutes.
All right, good luck and be safe. Okay, SharePlay started.
I'm definitely getting a better connection here.
Okay.
Can you hear
I'm
that, by the
hearing-
way?
I'm hearing an echo of myself.
Yeah. Oh, of yourself? That's weird.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here! Seriously?
What did you do exactly?
I'm down in the fucking basement connected to the modem. Good.
I got
Good.
like 4 or 5 blue bars there, and now like
Oh, I got like 20 blue bars there.
oh god damn it.
Oh my god. There's no way this shit doesn't work.
Might actually be a way to do it is for us to do this on stream.
Yeah,
And
like
just,
that's
let people watch or whatever, but and be terrible and ignore the chat at least.
yeah. I'm in the fucking basement right now.
Like a troll. The fucking basement fucking trying to get this shit working. Sony's like, nope.
Oh my god. Okay, give me 10 minutes. I gotta move my shit back upstairs.
Yeah, alright. And I'm not including I'm just gonna put recording Bloodborne, let's talk lore, and then in brackets long story. So that no one fucking has.
Yeah, long story.
Long story.
Oh, I should have taken a picture of my setup in my basement
Oh god.
and sent it to you. It was a disaster, man. The monitor was like suspended in air in my wires. Can't see anything.
Invite
right
players
now.
to broadcast, I'll invite you this way.
Yeah, do that. There we go. Alright. The broadcast has been stopped.
What?
That's what it told me.
Are you fucking kidding me? Everyone is so confused in the chat. It's amazing.
It's a long story. That's all they need to know. Oh shit! Oh shit!
Did
It's
it?
working. Yeah, I can see you. You're wearing the
Yeah.
you're wearing fucking Henrik's garb.
Awesome.
I see you.
So it was a privacy settings thing. So I needed to set it so that people can see my activity, which is fucking stupid because if I'm live streaming, obviously
okay.
I want people
Yeah,
to see
I
my
see you, dude.
activity.
Oh, I see you, baby. I see everything, baby.
Hello everyone. This is Aegon of Astora, and welcome back to Bloodborne Let's Talk Lore. This is episode 13, and as I mentioned in the previous episode, I experienced a fair bit of technical difficulties while trying to record this episode where we actually traveled to Byrgenwerth. And the reason for that is that I wanted to have a special guest along with me on my trip to Byrgenwerth. So say hello, special guest.
Hello, special guest.
So we are
You said to say
very, very privileged and enormously happy and grateful to have Redgrave along with us on the ride to Byrgenwerth. And as you might be able to see in the top right corner of the screen, every now and then the little on-air thing will be flashing.
Yeah, there it
is the fact that, yeah, we are actually live streaming right now via Twitch. And I don't really need to explain it to you, because if you're watching this on YouTube, then you're likely, you will have just seen an introduction montage that I will have edited together, showing some of the enormous pain in the ass that is the PS4 share play, which would have been ideal, which would have allowed Redgrave to see what I'm doing, and, you know, I'd be able to record his voice off of the chat, no problem. But for whatever fucking reason, it just did not work. And so what we're doing right now is, so that Redgrave can actually see what it is that I'm talking about as, you know, I'm playing through the level, we are live streaming on Twitch. But we're not using the mic, and I'm not allowing Redgrave's dialogue to be transmitted either to the live stream. So if you are one of the, you know, 10 or 11 people who are on the Twitch live stream right now of this particular episode, I sincerely apologize. And so yeah, 10 people and 29 messages since we've last since we last went online, because we went online and offline about 15 times before we are actually able to get to work. So
You should tell them to shut up so that the message stops showing up. Just type a real quick message.
No, they can, you know, because for them, they must be really confused, and they're probably trying to let me know that.
Yeah, I can't.
They're probably saying, "Hey, Aegon, we can't hear you."
Hey, your mic is muted. Hey, your mic. Trust me, I've streamed before.
And probably just really confused about that. So I really appreciate what I assume is them, and I'm not even looking at the chat now, but what I assume is them, you know, saying, "Hey, what the fuck's going on?" So just to get you caught up, Redgrave, because this episode has not yet been aired. I mentioned before we went live that we went to the Abandoned Church Workshop last time, and that
awesome.
We picked up the tear stone from the doll, which says silver shiny tear stone used to change into a droplet blood gem that fortifies any weapon. A doll sheds neither blood nor tears, and thus its nature remains unknown. Whoever thinks this is precious must be troubled by severe naivete. So what do you think? What is the deal with the tear stone?
So the tear stone itself doesn't interest me as much as the blood gem you get out of it. But that last sentence with "whoever thinks this is precious must be troubled by severe naivete," I almost want to feel like that's some kind of shot at lore analyzers.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? That's something I kind of want to think of, because we know that they put in those little messages like with the wooden shield, which was kind of a jab at the passive nature of the Souls games. So I kind of feel like that's some kind of jab. I don't know.
There's a lot of fourth wall breaking stuff in this game.
There is a lot more in Bloodborne than there has been before.
So that's very interesting. But yeah, so the blood gem itself, and this is something that I find very interesting, in that even though they are placed separately, this is the blood gem here, the Cursed Tempering Blood Gemstone, a blood gem that fortifies weapons and adds various properties. The sickly spots are indicative of a curse, but this gem's malicious effects are perfect for bolstering certain types of weapons. Droplet blood gems are special gems that adapt to various weapons and shapes, naturally making them highly prized among hunters. This blood gem is dropped by the Winter Lantern, which
right, yeah.
I had no fucking idea about that. But okay, I thought that
it's another sort of another link between them and the doll,
because they look very similar.
Well, they're wearing the same clothes and they're the same height, and they're both identifiably female.
Even the blood gem itself kind of looks similar.
Oh yeah, even the blood gems look very similar too.
So
they have the same sort of fractured pattern going towards the center.
But this one says blood gem. Okay, drop it. Okay, created from a shining silver doll tear. This blood gem is a quiet but unfaltering friend that continually restores HP, the life essence of a hunter. Perhaps the doll's creator had wished for just such a friend, albeit in vain. So, the doll's creator, is it Gehrman, in your view?
Yes and no. Gehrman made the actual physical doll. I think we can say that pretty confidently. seeing as we find it in the abandoned old workshop. And that last sentence, perhaps the doll's creator had wished for just such a friend, albeit in vain. I do think that's referring to Gehrman. And I think that very early on, like I want to say the first week Bloodborne came out, there was this huge theory that Gehrman had a daughter, and the daughter died, and so he made the doll.
I remember that,
and that sort of thing. It was a really interesting theory because there was like nothing whatsoever to back it up. And I think that this really irons it down, which is that just Gehrman was lonely, and he just wanted a friend, and he was terribly lonely and terribly miserable in his isolation. We don't know when Lawrence died, but we don't know if Gehrman was around for that or not. But he was terribly lonely, and as we know, the Moon Rune tells us that the Great Ones in the Nightmare are sympathetic in spirit, so I think it's very possible that something preyed on his loneliness and sort of used that to get into his mind or whatever, and that's where everything sort of went down.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's really tough. I wish you could have been able to see, because I just recorded the episode last night where we went to the
That's fine.
The abandoned church workshop, and I talked a little bit about Gehrman, but it was more just provocations as opposed to me actually trying to figure things out. But yeah, that's all very interesting. But for now, I guess, until the next time we have you on, when we can look at these things in greater detail, I suppose we should just keep on moving, unless you had something else you wanted to say about the doll and Gehrman and all that stuff.
Nothing in particular. I'm just waiting for the old hunters, when I'm sure we're going to get some answers about that.
I can't wait.
So
this is something that Je Sans Frontières pointed out in a comment on episode 11, that you can see that there are actually skeletal remains built into the foundation of this wall. And that's not something I ever noticed before.
Yeah, maybe like Thumerian diggers, because the Thumerian, like the workers, were really like worked to death, basically. When you look at the Hinter tombs, even when they're dead, they're just like slaving away. So maybe this was an old excavation, or maybe those are Byrgenwerth guys, but I doubt it, seeing as I don't think there's no evidence that like the Byrgenwerth institution was like a sadistic institution or something. It was, according to our information, it was just like a college.
Yeah, it's really, a lot of these things are really entangled, and like something that was talked about a lot in the comments last week was just about how these gravestones don't really seem to make any, like, it looks almost as though they were just tossed aside.
Yeah, well, the giant gravestones are really interesting to me because of the giants that wander around, and you do wonder about them, and you do find them in the Hinter tombs. And in the Chalice dungeons, you find the undead giants a lot, and it kind of makes you wonder where the Healing Church got them.
So maybe the next time I have you on, probably the best time for me to have you on for the next time, would be when we do another Chalice Dungeon-centric episode.
Ooh, that would be fun. I love the Chalice Dungeons. I'm like the only person in the world who likes the Chalice Dungeons.
I've grown to really like them, in fact.
Oh, yeah?
Just based on this series, like the amount of time I've actually spent down there. It's something that really, like, the lore doesn't really make any sense to me. Or it made sense to me, but things are much clearer once you've spent a considerable amount of time down there.
Yeah, I mean, I could go into a whole length about the Chalice Dungeons, but I guess we can save that for like another time.
So the next time I have you on,
I have a whole pack.
I'll have an episode pre-recorded, so then that way we can just do what we discussed earlier, where we'll sync it up, and then the two of us will do post-commentary together.
That sounds awesome. Anything would be better than trying this again.
And again, I apologize to all the people who are, writing feverishly in the chat right now. You can see on the top right the messages piling up. But yeah, this was the only way we could do it today. And so here we have our first Garden of Eyes.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
What are these things in your view?
Well, I think the official guide, I don't have it offhand, but I'm pretty sure it refers to them as being students or results of Willem's experimentation. You can tell they are definitely humanoid, and I don't think it's a stretch to say that they were at one point humanoid and then they were turned into this.
Well, they're still kind of humanoid, just with the...
Yeah, they're still people. You can see they don't, they have a lot of eyes on their head.
And like a strange kind of...
And they're very insect-like.
Like leaf antennae.
Yeah, very interesting. And you can see it right there, actually. He's holding it in his left hand. He's holding a little stone.
Oh.
And I don't remember who, but a few months back, someone made a thread about that, where there's actually like a spider carved onto those stones.
Wow.
And the theory was that possibly maybe that's what makes the noise when they jump on you, is that they hold the stone up to your ear, and that's what causes the frenzy. But yeah, no, that stone is very interesting. You can make references to the manga Berserk with it, but I try not to do that because
there are enough other people who do that.
Is inspired by Berserk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the easy way out. But yeah, you can see it in his left hand, that stone that he's holding, and there is a spider carved on it, which is very interesting considering the fact that, the Byrgenwerth spider, the vacuous spider.
That I never noticed. I think mostly just because I've, always just been really conscious about avoiding frenzy buildup.
About avoiding them, yeah. Well, that's the point of frenzy, is that you're so focused on getting away from it that you never actually take a look at what it is.
Well, in this case... He almost got me even still. But in this case, we are obscenely over-leveled. I think we're at level 222 now, so... Wow. All in the interest of... And I'm trying to see if I can get a better look at the thing in its hand.
It's in his left hand.
Oh, ragdolls. Yeah, there it is. Well, that's not the best angle. But yeah, you can definitely see that there's things carved in there.
Yeah. I don't know if I wish I had that off the... But yeah, I'm sure if you looked it up...
Yeah, I'll see if I can overlay something on top of the screen and add some links and stuff, as you know...
Yeah, definitely.
As I am wont to do. What is this? Is that another... Looks almost like...
Looks like a rock formation, kind of.
But almost like a baby amygdala, kind of.
Well, yeah, a lot of those statues that you find in the Healing Church and even in the Forbidden Woods, like, they're not really statues. They're kind of like idols littered all over the place. They do resemble the amygdala a lot. Just the head. That's what strikes out the most.
But in the Forbidden Woods, though, remember the ones I pointed out in episode 11, there were statues of amygdala, but then there were also statues of the celestial children. So this seems almost like a halfway point between the amygdala and the celestial children. Or it could be something else entirely.
Yeah, some kind of transform. Maybe those were Gardens of Eyes that didn't go all the way. Yeah, because you can see, like, got those, like, things sticking out of the back of their head, or out of the back of their, like, back.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that certainly seems plausible.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen from Yahargul that, like, some after effect of whatever these rituals are is turning people to stone. Although I don't know if we're there in this playthrough yet.
We have been to Yahargul, but the pre...
But not after the Blood.
Yeah. So, and then that's obviously when things become, very different. And we start to see, things that we're not so privy to previously.
Oh, look at all the messages on the ground. The Paleblood messages.
Beware of insect.
I love that.
Blood attack is effective. Yeah, so this is another area where, just playing through the game, and these things are everywhere.
Yeah.
I've never noticed that because I'm so used to, like, I can run through Byrgenwerth in probably 5 minutes at most.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially once you've done it so many times that that it's just second nature to you. You don't even think about your surroundings anymore.
Oh no. Oh. And you could hear that noise. So I'm gonna see if I can. Oh, look at that frenzy buildup.
Yeah, you hear that?
So that's what happens when you're at 92 insight.
Yeah. It's brutal. But yeah, that noise, that like high-pitched ringing noise. There was some speculation going on. I wish I could remember the guy's name, but there was some speculation going on that maybe that was like the stone being held up to your ear.
Well, let's see. I'll let him do it again, and let's see. Because, yeah, it does look like he's using the one hand actively, but then the other hand, yeah, he is just kind of holding the stone near your face.
Right.
So that's very interesting. Because I had never even noticed that. Oh, okay, so this is a much better perspective. Yeah, and it is indeed a spider. Look at that.
Yep. Yeah, look at that.
That is very, very cool.
Definitely. Very cool.
Okay, so already all of the trouble that you and I have gone through in the last 2 weeks trying to get this, I think it's already worth it. Just for that one.
Yeah, look at that. That's a great angle right there.
That's fantastic. And look at this. It's just slightly different than the other ones.
There's also a brain sucker here, which is weird, but I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I still don't fully understand what the brain suckers even are.
So my interpretation of the brain suckers is that they're choir members who have been taken over by phantasms.
Interesting.
And that those slugs that stick out of their head are the phantasms that we hear about. And like if you have the empty phantasm shell, which we'll get actually in the Byrgenwerth mansion.
And
that is my
are
interpretation.
they related in some way? Yeah, because you know what? It looks like they're wearing a version of the Madman set, kind of.
Right, like a sort of tattered version of it.
Let's see.
That's my interpretation, at least, of the brain suckers.
I do like that. So,
and because I mean, yeah,
most two prospectors.
And if you look at the madman's knowledge and the great one's wisdom, like how their heads are exploding with slugs, like that's sort of what it looks like.
Let's see. And I've been holding off on reading the. Oh yeah. I've been holding off on reading the Madman's or Great One's wisdom until we got here, but since we're already here, might as well.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it's a better time than any.
Fragments of the lost wisdom of the Great Ones, beings that might be described as gods, used to gain insight. At Byrgenwerth, Master Willem had an epiphany. We are thinking on the basis of planes. What we need are more eyes. And so indeed, notwithstanding the Chalice Dungeons, which is where I got that, this is the first place in the game, right over here, I believe, where you get the Great One's Wisdom for the first time.
I think it's on the porch, or like the balcony outside of the mansion that you get it.
It's right near the flower. What is that thing called?
Like that outer... I don't know what it's called. I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head.
Flower.
Some flower or something. Yeah, which is interesting when we think about the flowers, because that is something I went over in one of my things.
Little Things in Yharnam series.
The references to flowers. Yeah, which I really want to get back to doing, but the move to my new apartment has been 1,000 times more intense than I thought it would be.
It always is. It always is.
So, yeah, it's taken up a lot more time and energy than I thought it would, but hopefully I'll get back to doing that relatively soon.
I'll be keeping my eye out for that.
Because I know I've had a lot of people ask me about that. And
well, you're a highly valued member of the community, man. So.
Oh, I appreciate it. That's very nice. It's very sweet.
I believe we just picked up Arcane Lake. This is another
Okay.
problem with me being in the Chalice Dungeon so often, is that I have pretty much every rune already.
Is that you have a lot of the
Yeah.
versions already? Yeah.
So this one, the transcription of the Great Ones in human voices ripples like a watery reflection. This rune means lake, and those who memorize it enjoy reduced arcane damage. Great volumes of water.
That's interesting. Reduced arcane damage. Sorry, I didn't
That's okay.
mean to interrupt.
Great volumes of water serve as a bulwark guarding sleep, and an augur of the eldritch truth. Overcome this hindrance and seek what is yours. So, why don't you speak a little bit to that? To the idea that
So,
great bodies of water are
The
a
idea
bulwark
that-
guarding
yeah.
sleep.
well, first of all, I think it's kind of funny that you get the one for arcane damage right here, considering the boss fight that comes up in Byrgenwerth.
So it's appropriate
pretty clever.
gameplay-wise.
Yeah, it is. And, but, yeah, somewhere along the line, thanks to Carol's transcriptions, the Byrgenwerth scholars discovered that great bodies of water could serve as some kind of defense mechanism against the Great Ones or against the Nightmare or the Blood Moon or against something. And so, you know, I guess fortunately they were placed right next to this lake. And they discovered that they could use this for whatever purpose. And kind of funny is that I think this is the only place in the game where the Blood Moon never rises.
That it always just it remains in this state, right?
It remains. Yes, it does. I'm fairly certain that this is the only place in the game where the Blood Moon never rises, except in the Nightmare of Mensis. You can see the moon,
It's stationary, right?
and it's not a blood moon.
Well, but that's
Right, yeah.
technically a part of the Dreamlands, right?
That's right. That's the part of the Dreamland, so I don't think that counts. But in the Waking World, I'm fairly certain this is the only place where the Blood Moon never rises. Is right here.
So I wonder if
But I could be wrong
if
about
that could be taken to suggest that perhaps this, like Byrgenwerth, is in some way kind of a halfway point, maybe, or an area that in some way, shape, or form kind of transcends the boundary between the Waking World and the Dreamlands. Complete speculation.
Or even if it's just like some kind of sacred ground of some sort, that it's like it's untouched by the Nightmare.
That there's because I believe you mentioned previously that the Moonside Lake is likely a part of the Dreamlands, right?
I believe that when you go into the Moonside Lake, you travel into the Dreamlands, yeah, and you can actually see the portal right there.
And so like it wouldn't be if in fact were to accept that, then I don't think it would be much of a stretch to argue that there's some sort of and maybe I'm thinking too much about Anor Londo here, about the fake sun in Anor Londo.
Yeah, sure.
But that makes that would make a lot of sense to me. But it's very interesting. All right.
I thought the little tree crept up on you behind the camera, and I thought it was like a garden of
the like foliage and stuff, just how poorly they look when it's up close to the camera like that is kind of...
Yeah, when you get close to it, it really is kind of funny. Like that is the problem with grass effects and with water effects and stuff, especially fire. That's where it's the most noticeable, is when you zoom in too close on fire effects. It's really just extreme.
And that's one of those things in Bloodborne where I was really disappointed by, the lack of next-gen-ness to it. That,
Oh, well, I mean, I disagree. I think the game looks...
Well, I think it looks spectacular too,
utterly
but there are certain things about it that are
Sure.
kind of, not fantastic.
Like the frame rate could
Yeah,
be 60.
well, yeah.
Like that would be...
But I think that should be the case in in pretty much every game. So I'm going to go open the shortcut first, actually, before we start talking about that thing. I think it's called... I know it flower is in the name.
Right.
And I'm really annoyed that... Do I have it in my notes here? I do not.
I could look it up.
It's okay. Whatever. We'll just call it the flower.
We'll just call it the flower. That'll work. We'll call it the Byrgenwerth flower.
In my blind playthrough, this thing reminded me... it's kind of like a mix between the moon...
Of the Gaping
Yeah,
Dragon?
Gaping Dragon, Moonlight Butterfly... and there's a couple others in there too, but it's really beautiful, but also just very unsettling at the same time.
Well, it has the very similar sort of vagina dentata feel of the Gaping Dragon.
Yeah, yeah.
When you look at the base of it.
And, like, it looks like its attacks are arcane initially, and of course you do find this thing all throughout the Chalice dungeons. But it shoots out fire.
You can actually see the cosmos a little bit. It does shoot out fire, but you can see it's almost like the Call of the Beyond, and then it shoots out the fire.
Yeah,
you can see the stars.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's just very interesting. But yeah, again, really. But yeah, I see what you're saying now. The particle effect right before the fire shoots out.
Yes.
But yeah, let's kill it. I don't know if this one drops Arcane Haze though.
I don't know.
Or it drops nothing. Because the ones in the Chalice dungeons, the flower that's on like the tip of its head, I guess, falls to the ground. And you're able to pick it up from there. So again, Great One's Wisdom, we just read the description for that. And you can see right here.
This is the first one you get in the game proper. And it's actually on a corpse. That's interesting. I didn't notice that before.
What's the corpse model here? Healing Church.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So very eerie. But yeah, I can't help but feel like Byrgenwerth was supposed to initially be bigger. I don't know about you.
Well, I think that's the point. Is I think you get this huge build up to Byrgenwerth, and then you show up, and it's really not that big. It's really just this mansion.
So you're thinking of it almost in commensurate terms as you would with the Healing Church, and so you're expecting kind of a huge.
You're expecting all the answers, and when you get here, you don't get anything. Because I know when I was playing through the very first time I was playing through, I was just like, as soon as I get to Byrgenwerth, I can figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, not so much.
And then it's the exact opposite.
That's very interesting. Okay, so we picked up 5 sedatives, which, yeah, you could just wave away for gameplay reasons, because, of course, there's lots of frenzy built up here with the Garden of Eyes, and we read the description for this in the previous episode, but I'll read it again now for your benefit. Liquid medicine concocted at Byrgenwerth calms the nerves. Those who delve into the arcane fall all too easily to madness, and thick human blood serves to calm the frayed nerves of these inquisitive minds. Naturally, this often leads to a reliance on blood ministration. So this is thick human blood.
Yeah, like coagulated blood or something along those lines.
So in the previous episode, I guess, like, asked if there's anyone out there who would have an insight about this, similar to perhaps the one that, people pointed out that this couldn't be menstrual blood because it looks a lot like plasma. And so I asked whether anyone had any ideas about what this might be. So I'm interested to see
the sedatives, you mean?
The sedatives, that it's thick human blood. I related it
that is interesting.
To kind of certain types of antidepressants, certain types of SSRIs can, have sedative properties, but of course, as far as I'm aware, there's no thick human blood in SSRIs, but...
I mean, I just find it interesting that the Byrgenwerth scholars were using it, because it sort of runs antithesis to Willem's philosophy.
So might that say something about how they were or were not handling... How the
schism got started, maybe.
Pardon me?
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it might say something like how this sort of deviation in philosophy started, which was, in their depths into the arcane, some of them started using blood ministration to treat themselves, and they discovered, hey, there's really something to this.
That's, well, and I guess they were pushed up against the limits of frenzy. Like, they couldn't handle the frenzy. And so we should talk about that a little bit, about frenzy and its significance, because I have talked in episodes past about how it is a gameplay mechanic which, while annoying in some circumstances, is really quite brilliant when you think about its significance in terms of the story and how it connects the gameplay and the story. So, so I was hoping that maybe you could bring the Lovecraftian perspective to bear on the significance of frenzy.
Sure. Well, basically, the like one of the foundations of Lovecraft, which sort of inspired all of Bloodborne, is that the more you learn about, the beyond, the cosmos, like the underlying depths of human reality, like the weaker your mind gets, and eventually it just sort of snaps and you go crazy. And a lot of Lovecraft is written through unreliable narrators, and you have to sort of discern whether they're crazy or not, because they're crazy, but you have to,
You don't know whether they're past that point of no return just yet.
Exactly, and that's what sort of frenzy signifies in Lovecraftian setting. In Bloodborne, I feel like frenzy is just, it's the process of learning too much too fast, that sort of thing. Whereas insight is when you slowly understand and you process the information of the Great Ones. Frenzy is when you're forced to figure out what it is, and it overloads your mind because you can't process it properly.
So we can probably say in the case of Master Willem that, he's a special guy. He has a very special mind, and that, whereas he was able to handle the weight, the heaviness of the new knowledge that was being acquired, of the insight that was being acquired, perhaps Lawrence and, their other contemporaries were not so fortunate.
And they started to rely on sedatives, maybe, which led to them pursuing other methods of ascension through blood ministry.
I like that a lot.
So that's a possibility.
I like that a lot, because that's not something...
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
Because, I've always thought of sedatives kind of as being apart from Byrgenwerth, but it says in the very first line, concocted at Byrgenwerth. So there would have had to have been some sort of...
They come from Byrgenwerth.
Yeah, and there would have had to have been some impetus for that. And it would have had to have come before the schism, because, who else is left?
Certainly the sedatives would have been banned after Lawrence left.
Yep.
I can't imagine any form of blood administration going on after Lawrence and Gehrman and Mikolash pack their bags and leave.
Just like it says in the Rune Workshop tool, that Provost Willem would have been proud of Carol's runes, as they do not rely upon blood in any measure. So, yeah, very cool. Okay, before, I was going to ask you about the possibility that, and maybe one other, so, we've already decided that we'll probably do a Chalice Dungeons episode together. Maybe one other thing is the Old Hunters, that maybe that's one we can do together at some point in the future as well.
Oh, maybe.
Because that would...
Maybe, that might be fun.
But for the time being, so rather than speculating about the potential appearance of Carol in that...
I think she's going to show up. I really do. I really think she's going to show up in that.
Well, that would be almost too good to be true. Carol and...
I've been wrong before. And
there's nothing wrong with that, right?
I really think she's going to show up.
You can only...
No, that's the best. That's my favorite. I love when I'm wrong.
You can only work with the information you have before you. Yeah, exactly. And that's how you learn, by being wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my favorite, is when I end up wrong. My favorite stuff, of doing the YouTube stuff is when people will post comments pointing out things that I'm wrong
Likewise,
about. That's my favorite part.
Likewise. And that happens every episode like 15 or 20 times.
Oh, of course, of course. And you feel like an idiot afterwards.
You feel like an idiot, but at the same time, you feel very grateful that...
You're excited. Yeah, at the same time, you feel excited because someone pointed something...
And also because a lot of the insights come from places that, you personally would have no way of being able to get on your own. That it's something... Sure,
people of different backgrounds.
Yeah, something peculiar about everyone's individual experience that allows them to... come to certain insights that others can't necessarily. So, let's talk about Yuri. Or is it Yuria?
Yuri. Sure. Yuri. It's Yuri. It's not Yuria.
I don't know where I got Yuria from. But yeah, Yuri. And I'm trying to make noise so that she...
Yuria, I believe, is a character from something. But I don't know off the top of my head.
Hello?
Yeah, Yuri, the last scholar, I believe, is her title.
And usually she comes right down. Maybe if I break some more...
Really? Because sometimes I find her upstairs sort of staring at the chest and like rooting around.
Okay, let's see.
That's,
Because, well, I guess...
that's how I
oh,
usually
yeah,
bump
there she
into her.
is. Because usually when I come here... And I actually had a very specific plan to take her out. Which I'm not going to be able to do just yet because I've already killed... Or I've already kind of... And so there's Call Beyond. Which, holy crap. Even at level 222.
Yeah, it's pretty strong.
Okay, so she's using the Threaded Cane. She has the Choir Gear on. She has a Call Beyond, which is, of course, like the spell of the choir.
Right. That's their ultimate weapon.
Which I suck at dodging. And she also... Is that the Rosmarinus or the...
Yes.
So it's not the Flame Sprayer.
That's the Rosmarinus.
Which is also...
No, she uses the Rosmarinus.
Which is also
She
a weapon
definitely
of the
uses
choir,
the
right?
Right. Specifically the choir.
Okay, I'm gonna let her kill me.
Go for
So
it.
that I can kill her in a more humorous fashion. but really kind of just cheesing her at the same time. But I'm gonna let her kill me over here. So we can pick up my echoes again. Yeah, so there's a Rosmarin. It does like no damage at all.
No, it's one of the it's one of the most disappointing things in the game, honestly. It's Rosmarinus. Oh, come on, it's better than it used to be. Are we really complaining about loading screens these days?
I still
We just take what we can get.
I'm complaining mostly just because of my Dark Souls 1 playthrough. Since my hard drive pooped the bed.
I had the word Bloodborne seared into my old plasma TV for weeks after my first playthrough.
Yeah, I don't know like who thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
All right.
It was just some encoding issue, you could tell.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and use the Shaman Bone Blade to take out Yuri. So let's try this.
On a Garden of
Yep.
Eyes? Oh.
Hey, Yuri.
I love the Shaman Bloom. I love the Shaman Bone Blade.
It's my
They're
my
so much
favorite
fun.
item in the game.
They're so much fun.
Okay, here we go.
The only way I beat my level 4 playthrough was through lots of Shaman Bone Blades.
I can only imagine. I bet you this is gonna backfire.
Well, it'll be funny if it does.
Here we go. But where's Yuri now? Oh my gosh, she didn't chase me.
She's too smart for that, man. She knows.
Yo, she
what's up.
chased me last time. Worked just fine. That's almost worse than backfiring. Because at least if it backfired, it
just
would have been a
the
little bit more
anticlimactic.
climatic than that.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is. Hey, over here. It's okay, we got 2 more, so we can still do it. There we go. Oh! Oh, no. I screwed up. Just gonna parry spam. That is pathetic. Missed that one too. It would have been easier to just kill her outright. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay,
You could have just R1 spammed her to death. Like, easily.
that would be no fun though. Over here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my god! She wrecked it! Alright.
Oh my lord. Well, that was...
This did not work out nearly as I had planned.
Well, I guess we have some newfound respect for Yuri. She just obliterated that thing. Although, you know, the Threaded Cane does get a damage bonus against the Garden of Eyes.
But she's like max level or something, isn't she?
I don't know. I don't know her
What is the
statistics,
damage bonus on the Garden of Eyes? For kin?
The threaded cane is a blessed weapon, which gives it a damage bonus against certain kin.
What?
Yes, but that is only when it's in its sort of sword form. When it's in its whip form, I believe it gets a damage bonus against beasts.
Really?
That doesn't show up on the screen. That's a hidden damage bonus built into the game's mechanics.
I did not know that.
Marcus, Epic Name Bro, is the guy who did all of the Future Press weapon data, and he actually goes into it in a lot of detail in some of his videos. I can't point to them off the top of my head.
Probably his playthrough video. Interesting. That I did not know.
Yeah, there are serrated weapons and blessed weapons, and they have hidden, unseen damage bonuses to beasts and kin, respectively. The threaded cane is the only one that's both in different stances.
That is very cool. Okay, I had basically no respect for the threaded cane previously, but yeah, okay, interesting. And so Yuri dropped several blue elixirs, which is a dubious liquid medicine used in strange experiments conducted by high ministers of the healing church, a type of anesthetic that numbs the brain. Hunters able to retain consciousness by force of will make use of a secondary effect of the medicine, which dilutes their presence while standing still. So the fact that she had it could suggest, because in a way she does, look kind of hunter-esque, that she's a hunter and she makes use of it in that way, but also B, that, she's conducting experiments on others.
I think the latter is probably more likely. I think that the blue elixir is probably, and it's interesting to think about what the blue elixir is. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, any explanation for it, but I think it's more likely that she was using it for some kind of experiments, that the choir uses it, because the imposter Yosefka, excuse me, does give you blue elixirs sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's after the second or third person you send there, something like that.
Yeah, it's something. You get different rewards depending on how many or in what order you send them.
That's a quest line that I still want to do in full. I want to see all of the NPCs.
Oh, I've done it in full. It's
and
cool.
What spots they're standing in and stuff. So that's something I still do intend on doing. And so here we see basically a lot of the same stuff that we saw in the lecture building. No, I just wasted another. I meant to use my monocular there. We see the eyes and the vats full of eyes. We have these celestial fetuses.
The red jellies.
Is that what these are?
I think so. That's what I think they are.
Do I even have any of those? I don't... Oh, I do. I think you're right, actually. Material used in a Holy Chalice ritual. Stillborn infants born of a creature of unknown origin, of the type found in some corners of the old labyrinth. Yep, that... I had no idea about that.
I think that's what they are. They also look like celestial larvae, only not fully developed.
And that's the other really interesting...
If you just look at the size of their heads.
Yeah. The other really interesting thing about the Chalice dungeons, something that's kind of a pain in the rear, but at the same time, really... Oh, look at these... Got some dancing pottery here, some dancing eyeballs. Oh, they're gone now. No, there it is. Look at that.
Yeah. That's the good old Havoc physics engine.
That's wonderful.
Put to good use.
But yeah, so you can see here clearly or I suppose more accurately, you can see in the lecture hall that they were trying very hard to replicate what was going on here at Byrgenwerth.
Yeah, well, I get a lot of flack because I do believe that the lecture hall is the Mensis lecture hall. Mm-hmm. But the achievement for going to it specifically refers to it as the Byrgenwerth lecture hall.
Does it really?
Yes, the achievement for going to the Nightmare Lecture Hall for the very first time specifically refers to it as the Byrgenwerth Lecture Hall.
Interesting.
So, right. That doesn't match, though, because the presence of Patches and the presence of the Church Giant and the presence of the Augur, although I guess you could make a good argument for the Augur being from Byrgenwerth, doesn't seem to match to me. But I do believe it's the Mensis lecture building. But I do get a lot of very understandable people saying, but I think it's the lecture hall for Byrgenwerth. And I've flip-flopped on that issue a lot of times.
Interesting. Well, I see no reason why it can't be both in a way, right? In the sense that it might be a reflection, Dreamland's reflection of the Byrgenwerth lecture hall.
The pursuit of knowledge, sure.
But also
just a sort of more general
that it's currently, that it's been overrun in the Dreamlands by the agents of the School of Mensis.
Oh, that's an interesting theory. I like that. That's very interesting.
Because, that could explain perhaps, because insofar as Byrgenwerth was reduced to merely just Master Willem, it could in some ways just be, just the...
Oh, I like that idea.
Like the shadow of the institution, and that, the Nightmare Mensis just kind of went there and took over and maybe conducted...
and that the School of Mensis just sort of moved in after they found it in the Nightmare. I like that idea. That's very interesting.
And that's, once again, something that, unless we were having that back and forth there, I almost assuredly would not have come up with on my own. So, it is very helpful, very interesting. And...
yeah, I like that idea.
Up here we have what looks kind of like a Copernican model of the solar system, which is the same as the ones...
whatever the Bloodborne version of Copernicus is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, I mean that in the sense that it does...
No, I understand.
Yeah, well, just to explain to everyone else, that it does look like a sun-centered solar system, but it's circular, it's spherical, whereas the actual, solar system is elliptical. And in terms of the time period, it just about fits.
It's fairly accurate for the advancement of scientific understanding for the time period. They actually did a really great job at sort of emulating the scientific, technological, the level of technology in the Victorian
era. The state
era.
of knowledge,
really
yeah. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is very interesting. And one of the reasons I'm pointing this out in one of the earlier episodes, I described this erroneously as the Ptolemaic solar system, which is actually incorrect because the Ptolemaic solar system is actually Earth-centered and not Sun-centered. But this looks very much to be a Sun-centered solar system. We also picked up from the chest it was the student uniform, I believe, or was it? Or was it the Phantasm shell?
No, you get the empty Phantasm shell in the observatory. I think you picked up the Pearl Slug, probably.
Which is...
The empty Phantasm shell is found in the...
So what did I pick up then? One of the student uniforms, right?
A Pearl Slug. In the main room of the mansion, there's a Pearl Slug in a chest.
Okay.
That's probably what you picked up.
I'm confused. Because I don't have it here.
You don't have any Pearl Slugs?
No.
It's a ritual material.
Oh! Thank you.
You're welcome. That's why I'm here. So that you don't have to read 30 comments from people going, "It was a Pearl Slug."
Well, I usually those are the occasions where I usually put a little text overlay that says whatever it was I was confused about.
Yeah,
the wonders of video editing. Of all the strange life forms that reside in the nooks and crannies of the old labyrinth, the slugs are clear signs of the left behind great ones. And this is something that in the previous episode, or in episode 11, when I was saying that the kin icon looked
oh yeah, you
to
got a lot of
snake.
flack for that.
I got like 100, not 100 comments,
yeah,
but four or 5 or 6 comments from people saying, and I was like, yes, I wasn't saying that I believe the snake to be kind of the root of the kin or anything like that. I was just saying that they look similar and that they might be somehow related, but
I don't think they are. I think they're very different.
Interesting.
And the snakes are one of the few enemies in the game that are neither beast nor kin, which I think is significant.
And yeah, there are a number of things and there were a number of really good comments in the previous episode that really kind of help are very helpful in allowing you to think about where they do and don't fit within the story. So now we have the Lunarium key, which says, key to the Lunarium facing the lake on the second floor of Byrgenwerth College. In his final years, Master Willem was fond of the lookout and the rocking chair that he kept there for meditation. In the end, it is said, he left his secret with the lake. So his secret presumably being...
being Rom, presumably.
Whatever they did with Rom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And how they turned her somehow into... really a bulwark guarding sleep, in a way. You could almost take that one line definitely. Literally.
I would take that line absolutely literally. Although it's funny if you think about it, because guarding sleep makes it sound like it's guarding the nightmare and not guarding the waking world. Yeah.
And so, but what purpose would Willem...
I don't know, it's just something interesting to think about.
Very interesting to think about. So, empty invertebrate shell that is said to be a familiar of a great one. The Healing Church has discovered a great variety of invertebrates, or phantasms, as they are called. Shells with slime still harbor arcane power, and can be rubbed on weapons to imbue them with their strength. And this is something that, because it mentions specifically that they discovered a great variety of invertebrates. One of the connections I was making with the snakes was I was thinking of them as invertebrates, but someone pointed out in the comments that they do actually have a spine of sorts.
Yeah, snakes are weird, but I'm pretty sure that they're just reptiles.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so
the Garden of Eyes is just sort of
really unsettling. So I think...
Yeah, it's so creepy, actually.
I think that's about... Well, we have... Is that a note? Yes, it is. When the red moon hangs low, the line between man and beast is blurred. And when the great ones descend, a womb will be blessed with a child. So this is something... another thing that we were...
Gotta be. That's one of the most important notes in the game right there.
And this is another thing that we were talking about in the comments of the previous episode, was how sometimes the direction of causality in Bloodborne is unclear.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's not necessarily a given that when X happens, Y takes place. Like, it could just be... They could be independent variables. They could, you know... The causality could be exactly as it's written, or it could be, you know, kind of in reverse as well. So
yeah, I like to wonder if maybe it's not that when the red moon hangs low, the line between man and beast is blurred, but maybe it's that when the line between man and beast is blurred, that's what brings
it attracts the red moon, and also that
right, exactly.
When, you know, the womb of a woman is filled with a special child, that maybe that's what causes the great ones to descend, right? So it's purposely left unclear, I think, by Miyazaki, so as to allow for that interpretive space to be opened up. So we just picked up the student uniform, the one with the
cape.
Yeah, with the cape. Uniform of the students of Byrgenwerth, a bygone institute of learning. Features a thick cape. The Healing Church has its roots in Byrgenwerth and naturally borrows heavily from its uniform design. The focus not on knowledge or thought, but on pure pretension, would surely bring Master Willem to despair. If only he knew. And so the rest of it is identical, I believe. But yeah, that's... If only he knew. So... Speaking of whom...
I think this is probably where you're first supposed to get the student uniform and make that connection. Because one of the faults of the game... There's another note back there.
Did I miss? Oh, excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah, there's another note on the couch. But one of the faults I find with this game is the fact that you can go to the Nightmare Frontier, and the Nightmare Lecture Hall before
the Blood Moon.
Rom. I think that's just a bit of a misstep on their part, because I do think it sort of interrupts the pacing.
Well, but also the sequence of events in terms of Like, the
Right.
things that you have to do to be able to get there before the Blood Moon, though, are kind of, like, if you're...
It's kind of awkward.
If you're a
and
Souls
weird.
veteran, then you should be able to figure it out, but for the most part, I think, if you're just going through the game normally... I
think it's
imagine
very
that a lot
easy to miss the Nightmare Frontier completely.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was about to say, is that I imagine that for a few people... For a few people, they probably wound up finding the first floor of the lecture hall from the second floor of the lecture hall.
Right.
Through the patches room, right?
Definitely. Yeah, and I know a few people who missed Canehurst completely. Like, it's very, very easy to...
I almost gave up on Canehurst,
because
because I couldn't figure out where the hell to go at Hemwick Charnel Lane, so...
yeah, you just have to stand in that one particular spot.
Yeah. So the spider hides all manner of rituals, certain to reveal nothing, for true enlightenment need not be shared. So this could lend some credence to what you were, suggesting about, maybe Willem doesn't want people to be enlightened, or maybe based on what he saw with Lawrence and his contemporaries, how poorly they responded to, Ascension, to the...
It's very possible, and a recurring theme in Lovecraft is that the guy who gets enlightened, it's sort of the opposite of the Socratic figure who goes and achieves enlightenment and then comes back to lead the people. In Lovecraft, the person who achieves enlightenment and sees the truth comes back and tells everyone, "You don't want to see this. You
I've seen
trust
some
me.
shit.
You really
Just
don't want to
leave it alone.
Trust me. You really don't want to know what's going on."
And so here we have again also eye coverings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is, someone pointed this out on Reddit a while back, I believe, that he has kind of, I don't even know what these are. They look similar to the Garden of Eyes.
Yeah, he has these growths sticking out the
Yeah.
back of his neck, these sort of fungal growths.
But that would seem to suggest that...
Although I don't...
Go on.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. Okay, no, it's, I don't think that it is related to the Garden of Eyes, because the Garden of Eyes are very insectual, or insectoid. I don't know what the word of that would be.
Makes sense.
This seems very fungal, and the figure I compare these growths to is Ebertas.
That's right. And it does, it also kind of looks similar to the lumen flowers that are attached all along Wrong as well. Maybe not.
Yeah, a little bit.
Not directly analogous, but
that's sort of that same sort of appearance.
Mm-hmm. And this staff he has.
And I find the relationship between Willem and Ebertas to be one of the more interesting things in the game that is never explored, because I do think there was a significant connection there between those two figures.
Yeah, I want to kill him because he has
don't do it.
What is the rune that
You've
he
been in the
drops?
Chalice dungeons for like 100 hours. He drops the eye
rune, right?
I'm sure
but it's
you have
only
it
the
already.
first level one, and I
Yeah.
don't have it. Are you serious? Wow.
Oh, well, I guess we have to kill him then.
Well, so when you talk to him, you gain 2 insight, which,
Yeah.
if I recall correctly, there were very few events in the game, and the guide has a very helpful table which shows you like the various insight gains. And in the previous episode, when we found the Abandoned Church Workshop, we gained 2 insight. And just now, we gained another 2 insight. So obviously, there's something...
Yeah.
That's the game's way of telling you this is really important. Take note, pay attention.
Yeah, I think outside of beating bosses, I think it's very rare to get more than 1 insight at a time.
Yeah. My thoughts exactly. Okay. I guess we gotta kill him. But so
Well, rest in
him
peace,
pointing
Mr.
to the lake, is that his way of saying, well, fine, if you really think that you can handle it, go ahead, go for it?
Yeah, I don't know, because it does seem like he's directing you to it, but that would seem to contradict the statement wherein he's protecting Rom,
Mm-hmm.
or he doesn't want people to find out about Rom. So it is interesting that he pretty clearly does point you to it, or maybe he's just pointing towards the moon.
Maybe.
I think that's another possibility, is that he's just gesturing sort of in his last gasps of whatever sentience he has. He's just sort of gesturing towards the moon.
I decided that before we kill him, we should probably get the thumbnail image.
Yeah, go for it.
So, yeah, that's something I never really got. I never really understood all that well.
Yeah, that is an interesting.
So it is 6:20 by my time, which I do want to take a little bit of time to have a break and eat something before I start the Fight Club live stream. So I might as well go take on Rom then, eh?
That's up to you, man.
We'll go take on Rom, and then we'll call it an episode there. And then, yeah, hopefully have you back sooner rather than later.
Do you want to do like a Hunter's? Do you want to do a Hunter's Dream section? I know you like to do the comments.
I don't have any comments to address, actually, because the one I recorded yesterday.
Oh, no, Master Willem.
So next time I'll make sure that you're in on that, though. I, a secret symbol left by Carol, runesmith of Byrgenwerth, a transcription of I, as spoken by left behind Great Ones, allows one to make additional discoveries. I symbolize the truth Master Willem sought in his research. Disillusioned by the limits of human intellect, Master Willem looked to beings from higher planes for guidance, and sought to line his brain with eyes in order to elevate his thoughts. So this brings us back once again to the Byrgenwerth. Is it schism or schism?
Schism.
Schism.
It's a hard to see.
I say it incorrectly half the time. So.
That's fine.
So the Byrgenwerth schism. That
it might very well be schism. I don't know. I'm fairly certain it's a schism.
I'm pretty sure it's schism. I'm pretty sure you're right. So this is basically the source of it, or at least one side of it. Whereas the one, fear the old blood, but also we need more eyes, and then the other side, seek the old blood, and screw Master Willem, basically.
Beware the frailty of men.
Yeah. So. And I don't know if I have the intellectual energy left to carry on that conversation for today. So we might as well just descend into... Yeah, that transition. Like that, this has got to be... Because otherwise, where the fuck are we, right? This has got to be the Dreamlands.
Right. I mean, you look up and that's a sky, There's a sky above us.
There's no moon. It's we're not scuba diving. It's amazing. It's wonderful.
It's so beautiful. It's actually so beautiful.
And
this area,
I wonder. It's another thing I wonder about. There does seem to be a light source here, up this way. If you look at the way it's shimmering.
There is. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Because if you look in the other direction, it's not there. So I believe.
I wonder if that points to where Yharnam shows up after you beat Rom.
Because I think this is about where the moon was. I probably should have been more careful about keeping my character straight while falling down. But either way...
That is interesting. I actually never noticed that light source before.
Yeah, because if you look in any other direction, you don't see it. It looks exactly like the moon shimmering off of a lake or something. But obviously you can't see up there. And obviously we want to get a good look at Rom before we attack her.
It's really beautiful, and I just love how they managed to keep this whole thing under wraps.
Amazing, spectacular, and that they were somehow able to hold off the marketing people.
Oh, absolutely. There was none of the trailers, none of the promotional screenshots had anything to do with the Great Ones.
And maybe
this is just...
Maybe that's simply because, the marketing people would have looked at that anyway and said, basically, well, I don't know, this is weird. We can sell a werewolf story, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. So maybe that just wound up
really
working out for the better.
But even when you look at like the official website, like all the monster descriptions that they posted out, none of the kin were ever involved. It was always just the beasts.
So what are we looking at here?
Well, we're looking at Rom, the vacuous caterpillar.
I love the way you put it in that one video. And so why don't you give a very brief synopsis of that argument that you made?
Of what argument? What argument are you talking about exactly?
About Rom being a caterpillar, or more akin.
Oh,
metaphorically,
so
I guess,
Rom
to a caterpillar.
Rom is. They call Rom the vacuous spider, but Rom is very infantile. And when you look at the word vacuous, when people were first sort of going into analyzing and really starting to break apart the lore of the game, a lot of people sort of came to this conclusion that Rom was some scholar at Byrgenwerth who was transformed into this thing. And that was the position I held first as well. That Rom was one of the Byrgenwerth scholars and that Rom was transformed. But in Miyazaki's interview, he actually called Rom cute. And that made me go back and look at it, and a lot of people agreed and thought that Rom was very cute. And when you look at the way she fights and the way she sort of thrashes at you, she's very infantile.
Very passive and very
the word
kind of confused.
Very passive. Almost. And she tries to sort of run away from you constantly. When you get up close to her, she sort of thrashes wildly at you and she backs away and she spawns the spiderkin to defend herself. She fights very, very much like a child in her movements and in the way she acts. And Miyazaki said that Rom was his favorite boss and that he thought she was very cute in the way she acted. And that really got me thinking, because we find this corpse of Rom, but we find a corpse of a Rom-like creature in the Altar of Despair next to Ebrietas. And when you think of the Ebrietas, the etymology of Ebrietas comes from two things, which first is drunkenness and inebriation, which I think is very fitting for Bloodborne. But the other etymology behind Ebrietas' name is that of a South American butterfly. And if you think of Ebrietas as a butterfly, and she does have like those wings, and she sort of looks graceful like that, you can think of Rom maybe as sort of a caterpillar, a sort of a child of whatever Ebrietas is. And here's a thought: is we're in the Dreamlands right now, if we're correct. So maybe that corpse in the Altar of Despair really is Rom's corpse. Yep. Because we encounter Mikolash's corpse in Yahar'gul,
yeah.
And we find his consciousness in the Nightmare of Mensis. So maybe that actually is Rom. And what we're experiencing here is the child.
Wow.
That was sort of used to form this bulwark, the vacuous consciousness of a child.
And even just looking at her face, vacuous is precisely the word I would use to describe just the blank kind of expression here.
And this is the reference I always make is to John Locke, who wrote that
human beings
are born tabula rasa.
Yeah, blank slates.
Right? Yeah. That are empty and that need to be filled with experiences. So something that's definitely vacuous is an infant. And Miyazaki tells us that there are special infants in Bloodborne who are used as lures to the Great Ones, or who are used as offerings or something to the Great Ones. So I think it's very, very reasonable to think that some infant, Rom, was used and was transformed into this being.
Oh, that's brilliant. I really like that idea. And yeah, how you relate it back to John Locke as well. With all that said, I guess we should kill this beautiful and unfortunate child who may or may not already be dead. And
if you have the flame sprayer, we can do the one-shot kill, the one cycle. If you have a flame sprayer, you can run in circles around her and just kill her in one cycle before she teleports.
Well, we're already
we're
overpowered.
It's actually pretty funny. It's pretty funny, actually. Speedrunners do it sometimes. Although I don't know if that's an old strategy, so they probably have better ones by now.
Tonitrus is supposed to be really good against her, right?
Yes, I believe so. She's kin, so lightning works well against her.
Alright. So, let's see. So we're doing 536, and then...
Oh, she's gonna get obliterated.
Nope. Ah, shit. I wanted to buff the weapon. You can also break her out of her teleportation. Wow, we almost... Oh no. Oh,
if you do enough... If you do enough damage to her, she will, oh my god.
We came very close to obliterating her in one, basically.
Oh, that was almost a one cycle, yeah.
Sorry, Rom.
Sorry, Rom. But if you look at the way she fights, where she just sort of runs away and hurls these shards of energy at you, she's really not capable of defending herself at all.
I probably should have given her more of an opportunity to show that off. So we got Kin Coldblood level 12 from her.
And it is a Kin Coldblood to all my haters who say that Rom is a great one. Rom is not a great one.
Haters gonna hate, right?
All my haters who call Rom a great one, you're wrong.
Coldblood.
That's very important that she drops a Kin Coldblood.
And the description for which reads, Coldblood of inhuman kin of the cosmos, brethren of the great ones. Use to gain unspeakable blood echoes. Dare not to delve into the world beyond humanity. The eldritch truth touched upon long ago at Byrgenwerth. So, yeah, there would be no reason for a Great One to drop Kin Coldblood. They would, in fact, drop, if they were to drop any...
Great One Coldbloods, which do exist.
Exactly. And so, over here, we see a woman who looks to be in a fair bit of distress. And so, that note said, what was it, that when the Great Ones descend... a woman will be blessed with a child or something like that.
A womb.
A womb, not even a woman, just a womb.
Not even a woman, just a womb.
So Yharnam is being used here essentially as a, as a human womb,
surrogate,
as an object, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
I didn't realize you could actually get so close to her without triggering the cutscene.
Yeah, you can get pretty close.
Is she holding a handkerchief? Or is that like a bridle?
Her hands are chained together. And I don't know, I believe that looks like a bridal veil.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
No, you know what that is? Those are the what are they called? Like pillories around her wrists, I believe. Oh, sorry, I just smashed my mic.
It's all right.
Her ears. Like a thing. If you think Dark Souls 2, the what's the name of that boss?
Lost Sinner.
The Lost Sinner. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because in the fight against Yharnam, she sort of breaks them.
Yeah,
and that's when,
right.
You know,
that's right.
Shit gets real.
Yeah.
That's when shit gets real, is when she sort of snaps them.
Yeah.
After you do like 10-20% of her health.
Interesting. Ritual secret broken. Seek the nightmare newborn. So, this dialogue box is something that I've never really understood how it's supposed to fit in.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's
like who's telling
that there
you
would
this?
be like right. You'd think there would be like a note right in front of you or something, and it would read "Ritual secret broken. Seek the nightmare newborn." Maybe it's Yharnam.
Or maybe it's just an idea in your head.
I like that. Maybe. That's an interesting idea.
That like from the insight you gained from breaking the ritual, like you just somehow know.
Right.
That it's been kind of not Inception-like, but that you just know.
Right. Very interesting idea. I like that idea.
All right, well, we might as well go and grab the lamp in here, because I don't want to get started talking on this place, because then the live stream will never start. It's supposed to start in 20 minutes, so I did want to thank you sincerely, Redgrave, for joining us. And
oh, it's been my pleasure.
I do hope once again that at least once more, before the series runs its course, that you will join us again. And
oh yeah, absolutely. This was a lot of fun. All the setup notwithstanding, this was a lot of fun.
Well, we'll have a much better system for it next time, I'm sure.
Hopefully, yeah.
But yeah, thanks again, and I'm going to head back to the Hunter's Dream. So say goodbye, Redgrave, to everyone watching.
Okay, goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. It was nice seeing you.
Now, before I get into anything else, I just wanted to say that I hope you're all having a fantastic day today, whenever it is that you find yourself watching this. And I say that now because I forgot to say it at the beginning of the episode. The segments with Redgrave were recorded on Saturday the 17th of October, and it is today, Tuesday the 20th of October. In watching the footage back, I realized that I didn't say that I hope you're all having a fantastic day today, so wanted to make sure I got that out of the way first and foremost. Second, I wanted to say thank you very, very much to Redgrave for not only agreeing to be on the show, but also for his patience in bearing with me while we worked out the kinks in his appearance. First and foremost of which was scheduling, and we had actually discussed having him on the show in, I believe it was August, when I first asked him whether that was something he might be interested in. And while the technical side of it, I hadn't anticipated there being nearly as many problems as we wound up running into, the scheduling was more of an issue because, he has a life of his own as well, and as do I, and that's why on Saturday, things were all kind of all over the place, because it was Saturday morning that I recorded the episode 12 of Bloodborne Let's Talk Lore. Almost immediately following that was when Redgrave and I started having technical difficulties for the second week in a row, trying to get the episode with him featured in it recorded. And then immediately following that, I hosted the Fight Club that I had scheduled also for about a month or two. So I hope you'll forgive me if amidst all of that craziness, I've, forgotten comments, or, the quality wasn't quite up to par. I think it should be, just because, I spent a lot of time ensuring that for this episode in particular, the reason why I didn't want our voices to be transmitted to the Twitch live stream, to chat in the live stream, was simply because I knew that the quality wouldn't really be there. And so, for example, here's an image of the timeline in Sony Movie Studio where I do my editing of a normal episode, so to speak, so episode 12. And you'll see, even though there is a fair bit of editing there, that there are, long stretches of 10 or 15 or 20 minutes where if I'm just standing in one spot, as in that episode, I was doing a lot of standing in one spot in the Abandoned Old Workshop, where, there's really not a lot of editing that needs to be done. But if you look at the timeline for this episode, you can see that basically every time that Redgrave spoke, I had to kind of change, and it's no fault of Redgrave's, it's just the fact that, he doesn't have a, equipment that's up to the quality of mine, or at least as costly as mine. And so, this is something I would love to have Redgrave on every single week, because that was just I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed recording it, and as much as I'm excited to bring it to you. But yeah, it's just a ton of work. So while I would love to have him on every single week, he also has a life of his own, and given my own time constraints, that's something that we'll have to figure out. Maybe 1 or 2 or potentially 3, depending on how it goes and how you guys like this style of episode, that we might do that a few more times before the series runs its course. So with all that said, we have a few comments to get to, and I've already blabbed on for about 5 minutes here, so we don't have a lot of time. So I apologize if I don't get to your comment this week, but I do want to keep the episodes from going too far over the 90-minute mark. So that's kind of going to be the watermark going forward. Beginning first with Gilles Sans Frontières, who writes, "I never realized the old woman left notes. Since she dies after the blood moon, it's possible she didn't even get grabbed and simply had a heart attack upon seeing the amygdala. Could also have been the church guards." So as I wrote, in part at least, in my reply to Gilles Sans Frontières in the comment section, first and foremost, the entire Lonely Old Dear saga that played out in the course of the previous episode, all that took place entirely before the blood moon. And the second thing is, as I believe I mentioned in that episode, in episode 12, that the church guards, after Vicar Amelia is killed, I don't believe the church guards patrol anymore in that area. I could be wrong about that, but certainly she can die before the blood moon. And I believe the guide does say that, it's after the blood moon when her quest reaches its completion. But, as you saw in the previous episode, all of that took place before the blood moon. You may have to quit and reload if you're trying to do it before then. That's what I had to do, but it did work eventually. Gilles Sans Frontières goes on to write that Lovecraft's dreamlands can be shaped by the consciousnesses that inhabit them. There's a character called Kuernes, who appears in 2 Lovecraft dreamland stories, and who reshapes his area of the dreamlands to resemble the town he grew up in. I think this was partially the inspiration for Gehrman, living in an idyllic version of the old workshop, with reference to the Gehrman isn't his real name theory. Kuernes, K isn't K's real name either. I'll just go with K. That said, I think the biggest argument against Gehrman being a kind of honorary title is that Gehrman cries out for Willem and Lawrence in his sleep, suggesting they were contemporaries. I agree with that assessment 100%. We'll get into the whole problematization of Gehrman in a little bit in one of the other comments. Gilles Sans Frontières goes on to say that I'm fairly sure Gehrman lost his leg because the moon presence removed it. If you look closely during the Honoring Wishes ending, the player hunter's leg is missing below the knee when it cuts to you in the wheelchair. This is really, really easy to miss because the outfits in Bloodborne have so much cloth that obscures your view, but I tested it by beating Gehrman without any pants on, and the shin of that leg is definitely gone. And Gilles Sans Frontières provided us with this very helpful screenshot, which does indeed show that, that leg, or the shin and that part of the foot are definitely removed for whatever reason if you wind up actually taking Gehrman's place. And finally, if the headstone the doll prays at is part of the real workshop, then that means she's praying for a hunter who died before the dream was created, which means she remembers a time before the dream. If the moon presence created the dream and Lawrence the moon presence, then the doll must have, at the very least, been constructed when Lawrence was still human. I know the timeline is a mess, you can say that again, but this does point to the doll being very, very old and kept around the workshop for a long, long time. So she's clearly very important, not just someone's pet project waifu. I imagine that Gilles Sans Frontières was avoiding their consciously going into greater depth about that point, and simplifying by just saying that the doll is this points to the doll being very, very old. But my view of it, and I imagine that this is shared by Gilles Sans Frontières, is that the doll, or whomever it is that is inhabiting or controlling the doll, is someone or something that is very, very old. But yeah, again, we'll get into that as we go on. Not necessarily in this episode, but through the playthrough. Joey H. writes, I appreciate the personal story you shared at the start, as I had a similar experience with depression/anxiety and the medications used to treat both. I also like the discussion about sedatives in general. Drugs are referenced constantly in Bloodborne. We see blood used in these sedatives, but also it seems as a stimulant at some points. Gascoigne appears absolutely jacked up on something, and his dialogue about the sweet blood singing to him really stands out to me. We meet a seemingly drunk NPC in Cathedral Ward, presumably the bigoted old man, but also read that blood is more intoxicating and is produced more than alcohol in Yharnam. A lot of consumables seem very drug-related as well, beast blood pellets especially, but also blue elixirs. Well, thank you, Joey, for your comment and for sharing that experience. I was really uncertain as to how people would react to my sharing of that story, and that's why, I took the time to actually put a little skip to the next segment button on the screen, just in case there's anyone who really didn't want to hear about that, even though I did try to incorporate it into this story of the episode. But I very much appreciate you and also Just en Frontier and a few other people who actually shared private messages with me to say that they really enjoyed that segment. And certainly there's a time and a place, so I'm not going to insert segments like that into every single episode. But it was, very, very heartening to know that, you all actually did find that interesting, and that for many of you it was something that you could relate to. But also, I really am grateful to Joy for bringing up this, because again, we see here this blood as kind of biomedicine connection that we discussed very early on in this playthrough, and that in episode 12, and to a certain extent in this episode as well, we talked about blood being used for its, sedative properties. But also, in the case of Father Gascoigne, it's very clearly used as a stimulant as well. But once again, we'll get into that in the coming episodes. Gerbroni writes, I've been fixated with the old man at the start of the game. It looks as if he has got a vast knowledge of what is happening throughout Yharnam. I think he etches the hunter's mark inside the hunter's mind when we fill out the contract and accept blood healing. Like a kind of deal, to be healed from the scourge of the beast, we must fulfill a contract and undergo a task. Maybe the blood he infuses with us is Paleblood, and the note we wake up and find is the contract we signed and the deal we made. Hence why we transcend the hunt as we exit Yosefka's clinic. I think that maybe this is Carol, whose job now is to etch the hunter's mark into the endless amount of hunters who are coming to Yharnam in search of blood healing, trapping them in a nightmare until they fulfill their contract. So I'm bringing this up not because I necessarily agree with Gerbroni's interpretation. In fact, I disagree with most of it. And that's not to say, as I say pretty much every episode now, that's not to say that this interpretation is invalid. But I think that as I believe we've discussed in episodes past, that the hunter's mark isn't necessarily physically branded on us, and that Carol is someone who, presumably, as Redgrave argued earlier, that we'll be meeting in the DLC. The primary reason I want to bring this up is something that, this attuned me to the fact that we haven't really spoken about the Blood Minister all that much. And part of the reason for that is that the first episode I wanted to open with a really crazy introduction. And that introduction, if I recall correctly, was a reenactment of how Gehrman got trapped into the dream, or how he became bound to the hunter's dream. Or not bound, trapped. Trapped is much better, because the player character is bound to the dream in the sense that, that you respawn, whereas Gehrman is, in fact, trapped, or Gehrman's consciousness, whatever he is. But yeah, I just wanted to bring this up to say to Gerbroni and everyone else that, there will be an episode, perhaps, in the near future where it starts with the introduction that you would normally get at the beginning of the game, because, of course, I changed that introduction for the one that I made, and I kind of forgot about the Blood Minister a little bit, but obviously the Blood Minister is very, very important, And so, again, I'm just bringing this up to let all of you know that at some point in the near future, we'll have an episode where we talk almost exclusively about the Blood Minister and the contract and Paleblood and all that good stuff. So on the subject of Gehrman and our conception of him as a person, as a thing, as a consciousness, Jackomaniac writes, possibly dying in the real world but living in the dream may be why old Gehrman has the title Old, and why there may be different people. After making the hunter's dream, his body was left empty, empty-minded, and unrecognizable given his seemingly reclusive nature, and they buried him there, leaving his leg behind in an injury that killed him for its magical value as a sign of respect. This would explain why the doll prays there, why the hunter's bone doesn't say it's Gehrman's, because he left his body behind, and why you get 2 insight upon discovering it. Everything there is directly related to the hunter's dream. Anyways, old Gehrman would just be him before leaving his body to become old Gehrman. So maybe it's just me, and this isn't directed towards you, Jackomaniac, specifically, but just the whole old Gehrman thing, which again could very well be a valid interpretation. I'm kind of lost when it comes to all this, and maybe it's just because the context isn't really there for this comment. I don't know. I'm leaving this possibility open that, perhaps our conception of Gehrman isn't as simple as we imagine it to be. But I do like the idea that perhaps the Gehrman that we find in the dream is in fact Gehrman's consciousness. In the same way that we find, we come into contact with Mikolash's consciousness, despite the fact that we enter the second floor of the lecture building through his dead body. That he is in fact dead in the waking world, but his consciousness persists in the dreamlands. So that's kind of where I'm just going to leave it in terms of my view on Gehrman for now. And I especially like, once again, Joseph Frontier's idea about, or not idea, how he conveyed to us that, in certain Lovecraftian tales, that parts of the dreamlands are formed by the consciousnesses inhabiting them. And so that would explain, Gehrman's retreat. I wouldn't necessarily explain the area with the great tree, but that's, perhaps a story for another day. But again, this isn't specifically directed at you, Jackomaniac. This is an interesting comment, but it's one that I think captures for me how complicated things would have to be. And that's not to say that they aren't necessarily as complicated, but it seems really contrived. That there are a lot of things, and especially given the, what Joseph Frontier showed us about how the leg is removed if you take Gehrman's place. It just seems like it's to me kind of unlikely and a little bit contrived. Maybe it's just as simple as, that part of the leg is removed as a, symbolic gesture of subordination. That the moon presence removes your leg as a way of communicating. You can't run, but even if you could, you can't. So you can try to run, but you only have one leg, one full working leg. So I don't know. I really don't know. But I just wanted to communicate to all the people who buy into this theory that that's totally cool. I'm just kind of lost as it relates to this particular theory right now. Marcello writes, it just dawned on me why there are so many saw weapons in a hunter's arsenal. Gehrman's hunting philosophy relies highly on discretion and practicality, since when he first started hunting, the beastly scourge was unknown to most Yharnamites. Workshop hunters would act unseen, swiftly disposing of beasts, and what better way of disposing of a beastly corpse than sawing it in pieces, then cramming it in a coffin that would then be chained up so as to not allow nosy citizens to take a peek at the remains. This custom could then have been continued even after the ascension of Ludwig's hunters, only now serving the school of Mensis their nefarious agenda. About the parasitic snakes and the pearl slugs, they kind of remind me of Stephen King's The Dreamcatcher, wherein alien parasites end up on Earth, but due to their human host's specific physiology, they mutate into horrible, oversized versions of themselves. Perhaps the parasitic worms and slugs which herald the Great Ones were used in an attempt to evolve mankind by Byrgenwerth scholars, and when in contact with human hosts, they mutate in such a way to become snake-like, warping the host's vertebrate body into a form more familiar to the parasite. Interesting. I'm not sure, because again, I'm really always very taken aback by the number of connections that are being made by all of you to various different literatures, and yeah, how vast kind of our dossier has become in the series, where we're drawing from all of these different places. And to a certain extent, it makes me feel kind of like I'm not very well read. Like right now, my job is virtually to read in the midst of doing my comprehensive exams, which involves basically reading 150 books over half a year. So I read about a book a day, and yet I'm consistently I feel less cultured or less well read when I hear about all of these stories that you guys were all relating it to. But I think that that's wonderful at the same time. So I just wanted to throw this out there for anyone who may in fact be familiar with Stephen King's work, and also to point out that we are going to be returning once again to the subject of the coffins very, very soon, because now we of course have access to the entirety of Yahar'gul, the Unseen Village. So that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you once again to Redgrave for taking time out of his busy schedule to join me on the show, even though there were a lot of technical difficulties. Thank you very much, Redgrave, for your patience. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on, and let me know, the rest of you, what you thought about the guest appearance. And it was actually our first time speaking live in person to each other, notwithstanding our attempt last week at getting things going when SharePlay did not work for us at that point either. But yeah, so there may have been a little bit of us talking over each other, but I think by the end of the episode, notwithstanding kind of the fatigue that started to set in for me after having recorded for so long at that point, that we hit a much better stride than maybe we had at the beginning of the episode. But I'm looking forward to hearing what all of you thought of it. But thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Oh. Is that you again? I'm afraid I've made a bit of a blunder. I'm just going to have a short rest. Oh, don't worry. I've taken blood. Enough to save an old woman.